wanting to understand about dinosaurs on this planet and the purpose of them for those experiences. What can you tell us?
The dinosaurs were placed on this planet to groom the environment. It's almost like when you set up a fish tank and you can put certain fish in there, like algae eaters or even frogs, and they will prime the water for more advanced type of fish. So the environment supports their body and they don't die. So that's the original reason the dinosaurs were on Earth. Their purpose and their lifespan did have a design expiration date, and they were all taken at once. That's why sometimes scientists or explorers will find those animals in different decomposing states, especially the ones that were in areas where ice covered them and they were frozen. When they were removed, the experiment worked so well on giving Earth the startup that it needed to support humans and other species, that dinosaurs are being used on other planets in the same manner. So that collective does still exist, and they chose that role. They are proud of what they do.
Thank you. That is really intriguing. My next question was about one of the sessions we had a while ago was you telling us that there was trash from space that came onto this planet that really kind of was not designed for this planet. Karen and I consciously were having a conversation about it afterwards, and we assumed it was bacteria. Is that the dense energy or the matter that you were referring to?
It is partly bacteria, but there was also DNA that was carried from other parts of the universe that influence how things evolved. Earth did not stay as pristine as we hoped it would. It wasn't placed in a bubble, and it was exposed to many things to enter and exit its atmosphere. When you have space rocks traveling and they do enter and they eventually find themselves to the ground, that type of material has escaped, and that was many years ago. So that influence started almost from the beginning. Even it was after the dinosaurs and the ice age that was experienced here. And once the ice receded and started to thaw, that's when both the bacteria and the DNA that was present here, it was spread kind of like through the food chain, because it was absorbed into the soil and it went into the plants. Animals eat that. And then eventually other life forms, such as the birds, tigers, elephants, everybody had a little bit of the unclean. And I call it unclean because it wasn't really meant to be here. the unclean materials, as you call them, go into their system.
Can you help us understand what that DNA then now has evolved into for us? What could we understand that and identify that as now?
Yes, I can do that. The DNA that did land here was from a planet that exploded. That race it looks like they were reptilians. That race also ended up coming here because they lost their home through that catastrophe. But the DNA and how it influenced the food chain all the way to humans, it carries the memory of that collective, and it does influence certain actions, certain free will choices. It was, we discussed before that there were some contracts that shouldn't have been allowed here. They weren't expected. That DNA can be put in the same category. This planet wasn't designed to support or encourage that growth.
Would that be the reason why many people say that everyone has reptilian DNA in them?
Not everyone on this planet does. I would say about 40% of the population has reptilian. Where these space rocks landed was what you would call Siberia. And so Asia and Europe would have more of the active reptilian DNA. But as people move around, of course, and breed, it does spread throughout the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All fascinating. I'm curious to know if mermaids, sorry, this is completely, I've got a whole random list of questions for you today. So lucky. Mermaids, will they be able to go, mermaids that are on this planet right now, are they planning to evolve into the fifth dimension, New Earth, with us?
The mermaids that are here came, just like all the other collectives, to learn and experience. Their past actually goes past the fifth dimension. They have a different type of free will here. They have some remembrance of their lineage. They will have their free will continue once they leave planet Earth. They are welcome on the new Earth. But I'm being shown that most of them will go home. They're ready to rejoin their own culture, and we'll call them families. They're more like clans, it looks like. They're so anxious to rejoin them.
Well, thank you. Sending profound love and appreciation to those mermaids that are still here on this planet at this time, and for all who have had lifetimes as mermaids. We just want to send a big group love hug to all that are on this planet at this time, and also who are supporting this planet at this time, because we want to acknowledge those unseen, unheard of, and unspoken about in the majority of our guides and support teams and systems and collectives that are helping us at this very important time. So thank you for all.
and they appreciate that. There's not as many here as there once was in the beginning. They originally came to support the aquatic life, and that support led to the bigger species like the dolphins and the whales. They help them develop communication amongst themselves, and that still is with them today. They are the rulers of the seas because they are more intelligent and they have a higher grade of, that might not be the best way to put it. They're just a higher being in the aquatic world, those two species. And they both breathe air. And that might have something to do with that. Interesting.
Fascinating. Okay, well, thank you so much. And my condolences to those who are excited to see mermaids on the fifth dimension, New Earth. And we accept all life contracts. And I'm sure we will see what we need to see on the New Earth.
Yes, once you meet a mermaid there, I know they've been viewed or witnessed on planet Earth, but they try really hard not to have contact with humans. That won't exist on a 5D realm. There's more communication and sharing. So those will be exciting times, wonderful reunions for some that thought they saw a mermaid. They will get their confirmation there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. From the Bible, there's information about throwing salt over the shoulder. Can you tell us what we should understand and know about that, please?
Yes, that became a taboo thing. There was a lady in the Bible that was told not to look back, why her city that she enjoyed so much was being destroyed. She did, and she was turned into a pillar of salt. So it was viewed as bad luck when you spilt salt to throw it over your left shoulder so you didn't meet any ill will. And that was just a not an old wives' tale. It was a ritual to protect yourself that was developed many years ago.
Could it now be seen as if you look back, you will get bitter? Not do that unless you are balanced and neutral.
That would be a great way to rule your life. Unfortunately, there are many of us that plow forward thinking we're doing a great job. The ego promotes that. It urges us on. Once we remove the ego from ruling, it's much easier to have the clarity and the perspective needed to actually make more meaningful decisions about yourself and your growth. I know that it's been discussed many times about your inner work, but when you move the ego to the side, it's a more clear picture, and you can analyze without judgment and harm and actually reconcile the feelings and emotions that were originally attached to whatever action is presented for you to heal. It's a process that's tricky to learn. I'll call it that. I know you've been told to view it, love it, accept it and send it on its way. But there are other levels too. Really understanding the emotions that you had then and then that you buried. Sometimes you have to bring them back to the surface, feel them again, observe it, find the right perspective through the love. If you miss a step, it may not be released totally. And then also sometimes there's different layers to those emotions that didn't come to you the first time, and you may have to relive it again. And unfortunately, part of your inner work is reliving traumatic events that you wish not to revisit.
And you don't need to revisit them until you've learned the purpose of those experiences. Is that correct?
Sometimes you don't learn the purposes of those experiences unless you relive it. You really have to let the emotions come to the surface. You're not going to feel them the same as the original impact, but you need to dust them off a little. And sometimes if you view it as a movie, a motion picture, you don't have that deep impact that you originally had. And it will be a little smoother. It won't be as harsh on you, but you will find your lesson within. If you don't learn the lesson, it will come back again. If you can't find it or see it, and sometimes you might have to ask your teams for guidance if you just don't get it.
Yes, thank you. Can you expand on the power of prayer and what prayer would look like to us who are not religious?
Prayer was introduced as a way to talk to your subconscious. And that's what prayer is, talk. I know that religions, as they developed throughout the centuries, created rituals or certain prayers to be said, sometimes even sacrifices, such as animals. But originally, it was to teach you how to talk to your teams and make that connection. So when you pray, it's just like having a conversation. They do want to know about your day. They do want to know about your thoughts. And when I say they, I mean your team, your collective. They're there to support you always.
It seems like it's very important for us to acknowledge them, trust that they're there, respect them, be grateful for them, and treat them like friends. Is that correct?
Yes. Or even treat them like yourself. And I want to present it that way because there's a lot of people that still have ego, and they treat themselves like they're, God, it's going to sound terrible, like they're top notch, the best, know everything. That's really your team. They do know everything. They know everything about you. They know more about you than you know about you. You should trust them immensely, not your ego. Your ego was given to you as protection, but it was listened to too much and then relied on. And then an addiction. We need to break that addiction. Tell your ego to set to the side and just take notes. It wasn't meant to be your guide.
I know of many people who claim that they get downloads or connected to their teams when they're really just speaking from their ego. how would someone know the difference?
Energy. And if that someone can't feel energy or detect um, the warmth and love that you're going to also feel from your team. I don't know. I just got a really sad feeling because I see a lot of people that don't know the difference and they think they are talking to their teams. It's almost like their ego was hijacked and they're being misled and given bad information. That's really what I'm seeing.
I think it becomes a problem when people don't love themselves to have their own intuition, to have their own true connections to their own teams, that they rely on others who say that they are connected. And there's so much ego in the spiritual world.
There is, and that also makes it harder for people to release what no longer serves them. They think they're doing their inner work because they're listening to outside influences, and instead the ego, and that is a big part of the outside influence. A lot of the egos, it seems like, is embedded with more agendas than originally thought. It's almost like darker forces found a way to reprogram an ego, and it's clouding the perception that certain people they once had, but now they've lost it. There's a lot that were on the right path, and now they're being led astray. I trying to scan a way to help these people. That barrier can be broken. The higher self knows this exists, but they can't do anything to stop it unless the human with the free will asks for the help. So it's like a catch-22. The human doesn't know to ask, how's it going to get fixed?
What if the human use their free will and asked if all truth be revealed to them?
That would be the best. Yes, that would be a very good approach. Thank you for coming up with that. I was feeling the cloudiness, and it was very hard for me to see an answer for this little situation. I was befuddled on the ego even being able to be tampered with. But it appears there has been a way. They found a way to detach is not the word, because it's even more attached. And it's bigger influence than it should. And that didn't come along with time. This is something that's just occurred probably in the last 10 years or so, where egos are ruling way more than they should. And humans are being more affected by everything that they hear on the outside of themselves, such as the media. That is a very big source of misinformation. And then there's also proclaimed gurus and spiritual leaders that aren't always feeding their congregation truth. And people's egos are allowing this to happen. It's like they're standing down. They're not really protecting. The truth is definitely not coming through to a mass majority of people that think they're on the right path. And a lot of them are very religious instead of spiritual. And there is a big difference there.
Thank you. Yes, I do understand. Okay, well, may on behalf of all, I ask for the truth to be exposed and to be more predominant and more noticeable now than more than ever. We ask that from all the collectives that are trying to help humanity at this time, for us to help those who are seeking it.
Yes, we need to pass that around. We need to, per se, wash the windows and so all the smudges and the cloudiness disappear. We need to see clear.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so there are two big events happening on this planet at this moment that we are aware of in terms of hurricanes and tropical storms. Ida, and then the other one is called Nora.
Nora,
Nora. Yes. What would you like us to know about those, please?
getting a sense that planet Earth is showing us how in sync things can be, because these two storms are supposed to make landfall at approximately the same time. One is definitely way bigger than the other. Mainly because that part of the country that it's going to hit, the population is greater. And this event's very visible because it's happening on the same day that a strong storm hit named Katrina. And then that one's in the Gulf of Mexico. Nora is in the Gulf of California, which is down by Mexico. And that will track through the United States as well. It will go through some desert states and cause flooding there that they're not accustomed to. There's going to be some flooding, of course, in Louisiana. And then Tennessee again, where they just had some devastating deaths. They're going to get record rainfall again and cause more flooding. There's been a lot of that throughout the world, not just in the United States. There's been fires, wildfires, and flooding for the past 4 to 5 months. It's not a coincidence that this is occurring. Both elements are used for cleansing. Cleansing is happening to what's the word I'm looking for? Neutralize some of the bad energies that have been present on this earth. That's going to help the ascension, of course. A lot of the people that these events affect, it doesn't help their vibration, but it will help the planet's vibration, and that's essential as well. So that being said, we had to take the course that helped the planet. We can help the people later.
Thank you. There is question of the timing, as you referred to, with it being the same day as Katrina. Are these man-made?
No, these two storms are not man-made. They're conjured and released by Gaia's will to help cleanse. She needs some of the negativity gone, and this will help. I know it's not the vibration of the collectives that she is trying to release the energy, it's herself, it's the planet itself. And this will help her as she gets ready for her ascension. Some of these binding energies need not be present. They need to be gone for her to continue on her continue with her plans.
Thank you. And so is it cleansing of the, so you say it is cleansing of the land to be able to release the density. Does that also mean exit points for people, and would they be considered, in quotation marks, dense, and that would help? Just so I can get more clarification.
Yes, that will be an added asset to this process. Although the exit points, a lot of those people were of high vibration and actually helped carry humanity through a lot of tough times. So it's going to be not as big of a positive, trying to find the words for you. The ones that are exiting were of higher vibration. They supported humanity in a great way. If they were to stay, it would help more as the planet released its negative energy through the cleansings. But they had their contracts, and that's their exit points. Did that help clarify that?
Yes, I mean, we do understand and respect exit points. And so the motivation for the cleansing is to balance, to heal with the water and cleanse the physical land over, say, a removal of some beings.
Both of them, it's not quite an equal balance. There won't be that many exits with these events. Not at this time. There will be greater events with a larger number of exit points. These two events are mainly going to come through and release energies that have built up, and they're not really portals, but there are pockets that collect energy and hold it. And it's time to release, to empty these pockets in these areas. They need to be empty. And that energy will be sent back to source as soon as it's released. But yeah, there are a few that have planned their exits that were of high vibration that supported humanity greatly, that will be in these areas. I don't see the balance tipping negative. It's all for the betterment of everyone's release and ascension, including Gaia herself.
Thank
It's
you.
it's another way of her preparing. There's been several earthquakes that have released a lot of the negativity as well in the past 3 weeks that were stronger than normal. And that's been different pinpoints around the world, not just focused in one area. Many releasing points.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So can we ask for all who are worried about this, can they be released from that worry and fear, trusting that everything is well and will be well and exactly how it needs to unfold?
Yes, there are many that need the understanding, many that don't understand. Yeah, they don't see the bigger picture yet. There's too many that still live in fear. Um, and they see these big storms or natural disasters, they're always afraid, especially if it's their area, of course. There are ways to prepare yourself for any event. There's a lot of options there.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, well, thank you so much. Now just a rough general guide in numbers in terms of the first wave volunteers. As a rough estimate, how many volunteers were sent as first waivers?
Approximately 750,000 souls came here to help. At the time they came here, the Earth's population was, of course, much smaller. And in planning that number, we thought it was a good ratio. The population did grow quite quickly in the human realm. Um, that was, of course, another reason the second waivers were sent, not only to support the first waivers, but the expanding population that was here. We tried to keep it in balance as much as we could.
What is the rough estimate of numbers for the second waivers?
We're showing her a number of 3 million. They didn't all, of course, arrive at once, but it was, they were interjected into the population, and it looked like a baby boom era because there were so many, because there were the ones that were reincarnating back, and then there was the volunteers as well.
Fascinating. And then do you get a sense of the third wave? How many were supporting that?
Up to 6 million. There was many, many more that came through, but they came, a lot of them came through as knowing that they were going to be that way as children and having more knowledge. They were more aware. They didn't have full knowledge and full remembrance. They're more aware, more intuitive. The third waivers.
With the density on the planet, are they coping as they had hoped? What can we do to help them today?
There are a lot of these third waivers, especially the ones that came through first, that have been manipulated is really not the word, but they have been they become addicted to a lot of electronics that has taken their focus away from their real purpose here. But then on the same subject, the electronics help ground them. And if they can fill into their purpose, they actually support humanity through this grounding process that they've developed here. It came with that a special way to ground through using electronics, such as video games. That was a phones. I know that society looks at some of these children as, and I call them children now because there's even 3 to 5 year olds that operate your iPad and your televisions and computers, but they came with that special gift. We look at it as a gift. There's so much more abilities that they have and we have, but right now on planet Earth, they get to expand their talents through these electronics, and they can ground into the earth while using them. It's almost like their focus is greater. A lot of people look at it as, you should let your child do that. You need to limit them. Don't let them use the electronics, but it's actually helping humanity.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. In terms of humanity's conscious collective, how much sexual trauma is still within the consciousness of that collective?
In the middle of your question, I didn't hear the words. Can you repeat that, please?
Yes. For the conscious collectiveness for humanity, how much sexual trauma is in that experience that we can heal today?
We can heal as much as everyone listening will receive the healing. The trauma was created because we rely on our bodies for life, and when they're violated, it's very, very traumatic. Sexually, I don't know if it's any worse than being stabbed, which violates the body. I know everybody's experience would be different for every action that would harm one's body. But I think the sexuality one is more brutal, more physically and mentally felt by the victims. It's very shameful because our society has taught women, because those are the larger number of victims, but they've taught women how to present themselves in public. Don't wear that. You're asking for trouble. So when something does happen to them, not only are they the victim, but they have the guilt of the act. So there's a lot of mental anguish that goes with the physical attack as well. The guilt will be hard to release for them. They need to accept that they're deserving of it. So we need to approach it that way as well.
For them to accept that they can release the guilt.
Yes.
And what about the perpetrators, the ones who are contracted to play their role for those experiences? How do they feel about? Do they have remorse or?
Yes, they also have guilt in the act. They have the guilt, the remorse, shame. I am just feeling into those emotions. I know that we've experienced others that we feel that they just don't have a conscience and they feel nothing, and that may exist. But for the attacker, the ones that created the situation, that play this role, accepted this role, they will need to find release as well and forgive themselves. I'm not trying to be sympathetic towards them, but you have to look at the contracts that people agree to. If you're going to have a victim and they wanted to experience the trauma and the bad things that can happen in anyone's life, you have to have the person to perform the bad acts for them to feel through. It would be very hard to accept that role, I would think.
To accept the role as a murderer or a rapist and complete your task and mission and life contract, which you signed up for with those other parties, because it was life contracted and there is no how, can we assume then that if their contract also took them to the new earth, that they would go to the new earth if that was part of their next destination?
Yes, that's very possible, but I'm also seeing that many times the same set of people, or even just two people, have lived lives together in different timelines and different eras. And at times, one is the victim and one is the villain. And they've both experienced each side. We carry sometimes you carry the emotions into the next life with you. Sometimes you carry a little bit of the memories with you. But I am sensing that victims have been villains in other lives and vice versa. And they wanted to experience the whole tamale, the whole picture, both sides, all sides.
Yes, I do understand. Thank you. And so for us who want to lay judgment on either sides of any situation, we have to first know the life contracts to be able to understand and respect the situations. Would that be your approach?
That's a very high approach. On 3D, that doesn't really exist. There is crime and punishment. There's always judgment. Not every person is awakened to view this perspective. So, as your society dictates, you have good people and you have bad people. And until you're released from the 3D realm, will you understand everything that you experienced here? Even your own judgments towards situations. You will go through your life review and we'll say index and put things in their categories and proper places and accept and love it. There is a lot to do. And most will do it with joy, though, because even though they had harsh moments, you're still going to look back on your time in your lives on earth with love and great joy. I know that if there are victims, current victims listening, they're probably thinking, how can I ever forgive what happened to me? Well, you do it through self-love because you don't want to live with that anguish.
Thank you. Yes, being able to forgive yourself and accept yourself and all of the other things necessary to be able to keep yourself in balance with the inner peace is so worthwhile.
Yes. As they say, life is fun. Enjoy it. Go for the gusto.
Thank you so much.